be? What the hell just happened?
Never underestimate a legend, even if I look a little old.
They called her a rookie before combat training until she fought 5 officers at once and won. True power lies not in showing what you can do, but in choosing when to reveal it. The drill sergeant's laughter echoed across the training compound as Eleanor Vance, 52, struggled with what should have been a basic obstacle course. "Grandma's gonna break a hip," Sergeant Reeves shouted, drawing snickers from the elite unit who couldn't understand why a middle-aged woman was attempting their specialized training program. Eleanor moved with deliberate awkwardness, stumbling over barriers that seemed too high and breathing heavily after short runs. To everyone watching, she was exactly what she appeared, an out-of-shape civilian who had somehow talked her way into the most elite military training program in the country, destined to wash out within days. But when 5 of the unit's best officers challenged her to prove she belonged, Eleanor would reveal skills that would shatter every assumption about age, strength, and the true meaning of lethal capability. What happened next would redefine everything they thought they knew about warfare. Fort Bragg's Special Operations Training Center, North Carolina, 2023. The classified facility housed the military's most advanced combat training programs, where elite soldiers from every branch honed skills that would determine success or failure in the world's most dangerous missions. The compound's atmosphere was charged with testosterone and competition, where respect was earned through demonstrated capability and weakness was eliminated without mercy. The unit Eleanor had joined officially designated Special Activities Division, recruited from Special Forces Navy SEALs and Delta Force operators. Their missions remained classified at the highest levels, and their training pushed human capabilities to absolute limits. It was a place where legends were made and careers were destroyed, where every member had proven themselves worthy of joining America's most elite warriors. Eleanor Vance had spent 25 years as a deep cover operative for a program so classified that it officially didn't exist. She had eliminated high-value targets in hostile territories, survived torture in foreign prisons, and completed missions that required skills no conventional military training could provide. When the program was disbanded following political changes, Eleanor was offered a new identity and comfortable retirement. But civilian life had proven unbearable for someone whose entire adult existence had been defined by purpose and danger. Living under her real name for the first time in decades, Eleanor had volunteered for the Special Activities Division as a way to return to service without revealing her classified background. Her personnel file showed only civilian employment as a fitness instructor and martial arts enthusiast, a cover story that explained her basic physical capabilities while concealing her true expertise. The transition from deep cover operative to apparent amateur was a performance that required every acting skill she had developed over decades of deception. Eleanor possessed combat skills that exceeded those of any soldier in conventional military service. Her training had included techniques from elite units' worldwide psychological warfare methods that could break enemies without violence, and survival capabilities that had kept her alive in situations that killed other operatives. Most uniquely, she had mastered the art of concealment, not just physical hiding, but the ability to hide her true nature so completely that even trained observers saw only what she wanted them to see. Eleanor's challenge was maintaining her cover while proving worthy of inclusion in an elite unit that judged members solely on demonstrated capability. Her apparent incompetence was creating doubt about the selection process and generating resentment from soldiers who had sacrificed everything to earn their positions. Sergeant Mike Reeves, a decorated Green Beret with 3 combat deployments, had made Eleanor his personal target for ridicule. His campaign to expose her as unqualified was gaining support from other unit members who saw her presence as diminishing their elite status. The stakes were higher than Eleanor's individual acceptance. Her mission required integration into the unit to access intelligence networks that could only be reached from within. Failure meant not just personal rejection, but the loss of crucial capabilities that national security depended upon. But Eleanor's carefully constructed facade was about to face its greatest test when Sergeant Reeves decided to expose her incompetence in the most public way possible. The challenge came during the morning briefing when Sergeant Reeves stood up in front of the entire unit, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had earned his place through blood and sacrifice. "Sir," he addressed Major Harrison, the unit commander, "I need to raise a concern about our newest recruit." All eyes turned to Eleanor, who sat quietly in the back row, maintaining the posture of someone trying to blend into the background. She had expected this moment, but hoped it would come later in her integration process. "Ma'am," Reeves continued, his tone dripping with false respect, "we've all watched your efforts during training. I think it's time we gave you a proper evaluation to see if you really belong with elite operators." Major Harrison frowned, clearly uncomfortable with the public challenge, but recognizing the unit's concerns about maintaining standards. "What did you have in mind?" Sergeant Reeves's smile was predatory. "A simple combat demonstration. Let Mrs. Vance show us her hand-to-hand combat skills against some of our officers. If she can hold her own, she's earned her place. If not—" Eleanor felt the familiar calm settling over her as she faced the moment every deep-cover operative dreaded exposure. But this exposure was different. It would be by choice rather than discovery. Eleanor's mind raced through tactical considerations as she evaluated her options. Revealing her true capabilities would compromise years of careful preparation and expose classified training methods. But continuing the charade might result in dismissal from the unit, ending her mission before it could begin. She studied the 5 officers Reeves had selected for the demonstration, all combat veterans with extensive martial arts training. Captain Torres had earned a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Lieutenant Kim was a former Golden Gloves boxer, and Sergeant First Class Williams had trained in Krav Maga with Israeli instructors. They represented the elite chosen specifically to maximize her humiliation. "I appreciate the opportunity to prove myself," Eleanor said quietly, her voice carrying none of the authority she had wielded in previous lives. "When and where would you like this demonstration?" Reeves' grin widened. "Right now in the main training hall, 5 minutes full contact submission or knockout only. Unless you'd prefer to withdraw your application, Eleanor's preparation was internal and invisible, accessing muscle memory from hundreds of combat encounters, calculating optimal attack sequences, and preparing her body for movements it hadn't performed in months of careful concealment. The transition from vulnerable civilian to lethal operative would have to be instantaneous and complete. "I'll meet you in the training hall," she replied simply. The training hall filled quickly as word of the confrontation spread through the compound. Eleanor found herself facing not just 5 opponents, but an audience of elite soldiers eager to witness what they expected would be a quick and decisive humiliation. Major Harrison attempted to establish rules for the engagement, but Reeves waved him off. "No rules, sir. This is about finding out if she can handle real combat situations. Our enemies won't follow rules." Eleanor stood in the center of the mat, appearing smaller and more vulnerable than ever, as the 5 officers positioned themselves around her. Their confidence was absolute. They were about to demonstrate to a delusional civilian what real combat looked like. "Last chance to back out, Grandma," Reeves called from the sidelines. "No shame in admitting you're in over your head." Eleanor's response was to assume a basic fighting stance that looked awkward and uncertain. Her body language suggested fear and incompetence, selling the deception until the very last moment. The signal was given, and 5 elite warriors moved to attack a middle-aged woman they believed would crumble under pressure. But in the next 30 seconds, Eleanor Vance would demonstrate why some legends are kept classified. The first attacker was Lieutenant Kim, whose boxing experience made him confident in his ability to end the fight quickly. He moved forward with a classic jab-cross combination, expecting to overwhelm Eleanor's defenses immediately. But his fist met empty air as Eleanor flowed around his attack with movement so fluid it seemed choreographed. Her counterstrike, a precise nerve point attack to his solar plexus, dropped him to the mat in less than 3 seconds, gasping for air and unable to continue. Captain Torres and Sergeant Williams attacked simultaneously, trying to use their numerical advantage to overwhelm Eleanor's defenses. Torres attempted a grappling takedown, while Williams threw a devastating kick aimed at her ribs. Eleanor's response was poetry in motion. She redirected Torres' momentum into Williams' path, causing the 2 men to collide with bone-crushing force. Both went down hard, Torres with a dislocated shoulder and Williams with a concussion that ended his participation instantly. The final 2 officers, Sergeant Martinez and Corporal Johnson, approached with more caution, recognizing that they were facing someone far more dangerous than they had anticipated. They moved to flank Eleanor, using coordinated attacks designed to prevent her from focusing on single opponents. But Eleanor's training had prepared her for multiple attackers in life-or-death situations. She moved between them like smoke striking vital points with surgical precision that left both men unconscious on the training hall floor. The training hall had fallen into absolute silence as the assembled elite soldiers processed what they had just witnessed. Eleanor Vance, the woman they had dismissed as a delusional civilian, had just defeated 5 of their best officers in less than 30 seconds with techniques none of them recognized. Major Harrison stepped forward, his expression mixing shock with professional curiosity. "Ma'am, I think we need to have a conversation about your background." Word of the demonstration was already spreading beyond the training facility through unofficial channels. Cell phone videos taken by observers were being analyzed by military intelligence specialists who recognized techniques that weren't taught in any conventional training program. Pentagon officials who monitored the Special Activities Division received alerts about unusual activity at the facility, triggering security protocols designed to protect classified programs from exposure. Eleanor's performance had been too exceptional to ignore drawing attention from intelligence agencies that might recognize her signature combat style. Eleanor's transformation from apparent amateur to acknowledged master was complete, but it came with consequences she was still calculating. Her cover identity was destroyed, But she had gained something potentially more valuable: the absolute respect of soldiers whose opinions couldn't be bought or faked. Standing over the 5 unconscious officers, Eleanor felt the familiar satisfaction of mission completion mixed with regret for the deception she had been forced to maintain. These soldiers deserved better than lies, but her true background could never be fully revealed. Sergeant Reeves stood in stunned silence, his assumptions about strength, age, and capability shattered by a performance that redefined everything he thought he knew about combat effectiveness. His campaign to humiliate Eleanor had backfired spectacularly, exposing his own limitations rather than hers. The watching soldiers began to understand that they were in the presence of someone whose experience exceeded their own, despite every visual cue suggesting otherwise. The lesson about assumptions and prejudice was delivered with surgical precision. Eleanor's revelation of capability created new problems that threatened to compromise her mission before it could begin. The demonstration had been too perfect, too precise, suggesting training that officially didn't exist. Military intelligence protocols required investigation of any soldier whose skills exceeded documented training records. Major Harrison's questions would be followed by formal inquiries from security specialists trained to identify foreign operatives and classified program graduates. Eleanor's cover story would face scrutiny designed to expose exactly the kind of deception she had constructed. Most dangerously, her combat techniques had been observed by soldiers who might recognize elements from their own classified training. The Special Activities Division recruited from programs that overlapped with Eleanor's true background, creating the possibility that someone would identify techniques that should have remained buried. The success of her demonstration had also created expectations that would be difficult to manage. The unit would now expect consistently exceptional performance, making it impossible to return to her previous strategy of appearing average while slowly proving her worth. And as Eleanor faced the aftermath of her revelation, she realized that her greatest challenge wasn't proving her capability, it was explaining how she had acquired skills that officially didn't exist. The crisis erupted 12 hours after Eleanor's demonstration, when a black SUV arrived at the training facility carrying Colonel Patricia Hendricks from Defense Intelligence Agency. Her presence at Fort Bragg meant that Eleanor's performance had triggered the highest levels of security review, threatening to expose not just her cover identity, but the classified programs that had trained her. Major Harrison Colonel Hendricks announced as she entered the unit's briefing room, "I need to interview Eleanor Vance immediately. Her combat demonstration yesterday exhibited techniques consistent with programs that require special security clearances." Eleanor watched from across the compound as military police positioned themselves around the facility, understanding that she was now the subject of an investigation that could expose state secrets worth killing to protect. Her options were narrowing to flight or fight, both of which would destroy the mission she had spent months preparing. The situation deteriorated when Sergeant Martinez, still recovering from his encounter with Eleanor, made a phone call to his former commander in Delta Force. "Sir, I need you to look at some video footage. The techniques this woman used, I've seen them before in classified briefings about foreign special operations methods." Eleanor's tradecraft had been too perfect, too refined to pass as amateur self-defense. Her muscle memory had betrayed decades of careful preparation, revealing training signatures that could be traced back to programs that officially never existed. Facing interrogation by intelligence specialists trained to break cover stories, Eleanor confronted the fundamental choice that had defined her entire career mission: success versus personal survival. Revealing her true background would protect her from espionage charges, but would expose a classified program that had taken years to develop and had saved countless lives. Colonel Hendricks entered the interview room with files that suggested she already knew more than Eleanor's cover story could explain. "Ms. Vance, your personnel records show civilian employment as a fitness instructor, but your combat performance yesterday was consistent with advanced military training. I need you to explain that discrepancy." Eleanor's internal struggle was immediate and familiar, the same calculation she had made in hostile territories when capture seemed inevitable. She could maintain her cover and face potential prosecution for espionage, or she could reveal enough truth to establish her legitimate background without exposing operational details. "Colonel," Eleanor said carefully, "my background is more complex than my official personnel file indicates. I'm prepared to verify my identity through channels that will satisfy your security concerns without compromising ongoing operations." The statement was carefully crafted to suggest classified background without providing specifics, but Eleanor knew that intelligence professionals would recognize the language and demand verification that might not be possible to provide. Eleanor's salvation came from an unexpected source when Major Harrison entered the interview room carrying a secured phone with an active connection to Pentagon Command Authority. "Colonel Hendricks, I have General Patricia Morrison on the line. She needs to speak with you immediately." The conversation that followed was brief and decisive, with Colonel Hendricks's expression shifting from suspicion to professional respect as she received information that Eleanor couldn't hear but could interpret from context clues. "Ma'am," Colonel Hendricks said after ending the call, "it appears your background has been verified at the highest levels. General Morrison has vouched for your security clearance and authorized your continued participation in this program." Eleanor felt relief flooding through her system as she realized that her former commanding officer, now one of the Pentagon's most senior intelligence officials, had intervened to protect both her mission and the classified programs that had trained her. The crisis had passed, but not without cost. Her cover identity was destroyed, replaced by a new legend that maintained operational security while establishing her credentials within the military community. But Eleanor's victory over bureaucratic scrutiny was about to become secondary to a more immediate challenge, earning the genuine respect of soldiers who now knew she was more than she appeared. With her security clearance verified and her place in the unit secured, Eleanor faced the challenge of building genuine relationships with soldiers who now knew she had been deceiving them from the beginning. Trust, once broken by necessary deception, would be difficult to rebuild even with official authorization. Major Harrison called a unit meeting to address the elephant in the room: Eleanor's true background and what it meant for unit cohesion. "People, we have a new team member whose qualifications exceed what was initially apparent. Ms. Vance has been cleared for integration at the highest levels, and I expect everyone to treat her with the respect due any qualified operator." Sergeant Reeves stood up, his earlier arrogance replaced by professional curiosity mixed with residual embarrassment. "Ma'am, With respect, we've all been wondering exactly what your background is. The techniques you used, they're not from any conventional training program. Eleanor understood that her answer would determine whether she could function effectively within the unit or would remain an outsider tolerated but never truly accepted. Eleanor's response would define her relationship with the unit for the remainder of her assignment. She could maintain the minimal disclosure that satisfied security requirements, or she could trust these soldiers with enough truth to build the working relationships that mission success required. My background includes training and experience that prepared me for the kind of work this unit performs, Eleanor said carefully. I can't discuss specifics due to classification levels, but I can tell you that I've spent most of my adult life in service to our country, often in situations where failure meant death. The statement was honest, without being revealing, providing context for her capabilities while maintaining operational security. But Eleanor could see that the soldiers needed more. They needed to understand why someone with her skills had chosen to join their unit, rather than pursuing more prestigious assignments. I'm here because I believe in what this unit represents, she continued. The work you do saves lives and protects freedoms that most people take for granted. I want to contribute to that mission using whatever skills I can bring to bear. The transformation of unit dynamics began with Lieutenant Kim, who had been Eleanor's first opponent in the demonstration. Still recovering from her precise strike to his solar plexus, he approached her with genuine professional curiosity rather than wounded pride. Ma'am, that technique you used on me, I've never experienced anything like it. It wasn't just the physical effect, it was the precision and timing. Would you be willing to teach us some of those methods? The request marked a shift from suspicion to acceptance, from viewing Eleanor as an outsider to recognizing her as a resource that could enhance the unit's overall capabilities. The challenge came when Captain Torres, nursing his dislocated shoulder, raised concerns that reflected the broader unit's struggle with Eleanor's presence. Ma'am, I respect your skills, but how do we know we can trust someone who's been lying to us from day one? In our line of work, trust is everything. The question went to the heart of the unit's dilemma: how to integrate someone whose initial relationship with the team had been built on deception, even if that deception had been professionally necessary. Eleanor recognized that this was the moment when her acceptance would be determined not by her skills, but by her character. Captain, you're absolutely right about trust being essential, Eleanor replied. I can't undo the fact that I wasn't completely honest about my background, but I can promise you that every interaction we have going forward will be based on truth within the constraints of operational security. The decisive moment came when Sergeant Reeves, who had initiated the confrontation that exposed Eleanor's capabilities, stepped forward to address the unit as a whole. I need to say something to everyone here. Reeves announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone prepared to admit a significant mistake. I targeted Ms. Vance because I thought she was weak, unqualified, and a threat to our unit's reputation. I was wrong on every count. He turned to Eleanor directly. Ma'am, I apologize for my behavior and my assumptions. You've demonstrated skills that exceed those of anyone in this room, and more importantly, you've handled our disrespect with more professionalism than we deserved. The apology carried weight because it came from Eleanor's primary antagonist, acknowledging not just her capabilities, but the dignity with which she had endured deliberate humiliation. Eleanor's response to Reeves's apology defined the moment when a collection of individual soldiers became a true team. Rather than accepting the apology as vindication, she used it as an opportunity to build bridges and establish the collaborative relationships that effective units required. Sergeant Reeves, your skepticism about new team members is exactly what this unit needs, Eleanor said. Standards matter, and you were right to question whether I belonged here. The only issue was the method of evaluation, not the need for evaluation itself. She addressed the entire unit with the authority of someone who had earned the right to lead. I want everyone to understand something important. My background doesn't make me better than any of you. It makes me different with different experiences and capabilities. But we're all here for the same reason, to serve our country at the highest levels of capability and dedication. The unit's transformation was immediate and profound. Eleanor's demonstration had shattered assumptions about age, gender, and capability, while her response to their initial hostility had demonstrated the kind of character that elite soldiers respected above all else. Major Harrison observed the interaction with satisfaction, recognizing that his unit had not only gained a valuable team member, but had learned important lessons about prejudice assumptions and the true meaning of professional excellence. But Eleanor's integration into the unit was just the beginning of changes that would ripple throughout the entire Special Operations community. Eleanor's integration into the Special Activities Division created immediate changes in unit culture and training protocols. Her willingness to share techniques from her classified background within security constraints enhanced the combat effectiveness of every team member and established new standards for hand-to-hand combat training. Major Harrison recommended Eleanor for accelerated promotion and leadership responsibilities, recognizing that her experience exceeded that of officers with much higher ranks. Her first mission as team leader was scheduled within weeks, marking the fastest integration of a new member in the unit's history. The incident became a case study in military leadership schools about the dangers of assumptions and the importance of evaluating personnel based on capability rather than appearance. Eleanor's patient endurance of discrimination, followed by her decisive demonstration of skill, provided a model for how professionals should handle prejudice and stereotyping. Eleanor's presence in the Special Activities Division sparked broader conversations about talent identification and development throughout the Special Operations community. Her example demonstrated that exceptional capabilities could be found in unexpected packages, leading to more inclusive recruitment and evaluation processes. The techniques she introduced to the unit became part of advanced training curricula. Though their origins remained classified, her approach to combat, emphasizing precision over power, strategy over aggression, influenced a generation of special operations soldiers who learned that effectiveness mattered more than conventional demonstrations of strength. Most significantly, Eleanor's story became an inspiration for older military personnel who had been discouraged from pursuing challenging assignments. Her success proved that experience and wisdom could more than compensate for the physical advantages of youth, opening opportunities for veterans who had valuable skills to contribute. Eleanor's transition from deep cover operative to acknowledged team leader completed a personal journey that had begun with her return from retirement. She discovered that her true calling wasn't the solitary work of covert operations, but the collaborative challenge of leading and developing other elite soldiers. Her relationship with the unit evolved from professional cooperation to genuine camaraderie, providing the sense of belonging and purpose that had been missing from her civilian retirement. She had found a new family among soldiers who valued her contributions and respected her experience. Eleanor's story became a powerful reminder that true strength comes in many forms, and that assumptions about capability based on appearance or age can blind us to extraordinary talent. Her example demonstrated that respect must be earned through performance rather than granted based on stereotypes, and that the most dangerous opponents are often those who look least threatening. True power lies not in showing what you can do, but in choosing when to reveal it.